Welcome back to On the Cusp of 30. I'm Katie, your host, and today's episode is packed with insights. It's been a minute since we released the last episode, and I'm so excited to get into it. Joining us today is Jacob Christensen, a seasoned video producer, business owner, and educator. Jacob's journey from launching his video business at a young age to now teaching at the University of Washington has been incredible. He's dedicated years to mentoring budding filmmakers and shaping the art of storytelling in education. I've been curious about his reflections on growing a successful video business, his approach to crafting client packages, and his 3 years teaching at the university. Let's get started and enjoy the episode. All right, Jacob, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
How
you
are
for
you
having
doing?
me. I'm doing great. Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good as well. It's a lovely overcast Sunday,
Classic Seattle. Yep.
right? Wanted to chat with you a little bit more about your journey into filmmaking and also the fact that you have been teaching at a university for a couple of years on storytelling. So that's
Yeah.
very exciting.
It's been quite a ride. I'm excited to share all of it. I have so many opinions.
Awesome. I would love to hear a little bit more about you. So if you can just give us a high level overview about who you are, what you do.
I am Jacob Christensen. I'm the creative director of JKC Video. That's my company. I've been running a company for 13, 14 years now. It's kind of wild to say that, but it's been a journey. And in my free time, when I'm not doing that, when I'm not creating content for clients, I also teach at the University of Washington in the master's program in the communication leadership graduate program. So many words to describe that thing.
Thanks for sharing a little bit about you. We'll just dive right into that. What is the significance of storytelling in the worlds of video production and communication to you?
Yeah, storytelling is everything. Like without storytelling, we don't have video, we don't have audio, we don't have like what's the point of all the things existing without good storytelling? You can have really great movies that look gorgeous, huge explosions and car chases, but if there's no story, people like watch it and forget and then like never go out and buy it, never care. Like people, it just fades into the background of society. Versus you can have a really great story that's shot on a phone and it really resonates with people and it can get millions and millions and millions of views. And I mean, at the end of the day, story is what matters. We actually have to like resonate with people's emotions in order to create impactful content.
I love your answer for that. And also, I know you post quite regularly on your social media. And so I think I came across like a post where you shared about yourself as a lecturer at the university. I looked at your profile and it said video, filmmaking, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I know anyone else who's working in the industry, but also like, teaching and at such a young age as well.
Yeah. And I mean, the comment you had about like working both in the industry and teaching, like there is a huge divide. There are a lot of people that teach that don't actively work in the industry. And I always wonder, like, how helpful is that? Like, it is. They can still be great instructors, but like, to what extent can they really relate to? Versus, like, literally last week in class, we were going over how to storyboard, how to script out content. And the following day, I was directing a massive production for a medical device company. And I pulled out our storyboard and was able to show them, be like, this is what we're doing. And they were just like so enamored by, this isn't some theoretical thing that exists in a textbook. Like, wow, Jacob's doing this tomorrow. Okay, I have so many questions that, are real world applicable. And that's part of why I love it, because I get to share that, perspective with students.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject, I'd be curious to know how your role as the lecturer came about for the master's program.
So I did my undergraduate at the University of Washington, and then I also completed the master's program, communication leadership. I did it because I didn't want to go to film school. I was already making money, making content. I felt like a lot of the learning skills were available on YouTube and otherwise, slash just like jumping in, playing with cameras. And then on the flip side of that, I didn't really want an MBA. So this was like the perfect balance of like, hey, video slash business, like, okay, let's go into communications marketing. How do we actually utilize our skills to make content? So that was my drive to get into it. And once I got out of it, I stuck around as an alumni fellow, which is someone that just like helps incoming students and gives them opportunities. I was giving workshops with them on video content. And when the instructor that used to teach the video content, he parted ways, went to go do his own thing, and I didn't even like reach out or anything. I didn't know he was leaving. One of the assistant directors of the program just like rang me up and was like, "Hey, we've watched your journey. You've been out of the program for a while. Can we convince you to come back, but in a teaching capacity?" And genuinely, I was like shell shocked. I was so excited because I have always been someone that likes sharing information. My first content I ever released was like me playing guitar, teaching other people how to play guitar, which is like very comedic because I'm not good at guitar. I just wanted to teach other people the little information that I knew. And that's a huge part of like why I make video content to begin with. I share information, right? I share clients' information. I share how to make it in the industry. I share all of the things. So it was like a very natural progression for me to be like, okay, instead of just sharing in video format, how do I also share in an interpersonal format? And so the really short answer is they reached out to me. The really long answer is I love teaching in many different capacities. And they reached out to me because I do so much teaching in other capacities. When they see a YouTube video that says, hey, here's how to approach blank, they're like, oh, they already know how to create a lesson plan because they already know how to create a video that like breaks down all these really complicated structures. So it was a really natural progression for me to like just dive right in. And then having been in the program myself, I did understand where a lot of the students were coming from and what would actually benefit them.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to hear that because I think, yeah, part of the curiosity was like, how did this even come to be?
We said storytelling is really important. You kind of mentioned like, oh, you post on LinkedIn, you post on Instagram, you're active. I am very active on those platforms. Well, moderately active enough to like keep people engaged and have them be aware of what's going on with my story. The only reason I am teaching at the University of Washington, I mean, obviously I had to have like the skill set and everything, but the only reason they reached out is because they could see from my social platforms that I would be a decent fit for it because I was already sharing all that information. And the point I'm making there is like, as creatives or any portion of our lives, you don't have to be a creative for this to be applicable to you. Like, you have to put forth into the universe what you want. If you do not put forth, raise your hand and say, I want this opportunity, then like people never know you want it.
Yeah.
This has been a really convoluted way to say like, if you make videos in your spare time and you only share them with your mom and, like 2 other friends, you will never be hired professionally to make videos unless your parents are like randomly like C-suite executives at whatever, studio. But you have to put it out there on a creative level.
Right.
You have to share your story on like a professional level, even if you're not in like a creative capacity. You do have to share, why people should actually be interested in working with you.
I'd love to take us back through your growth as like a filmmaker, a video creator, and how it led you to the point that you are today. Because 14 years, that's a long time, and during that time I'm sure you've had a lot of trial and error, like just figuring things out.
14 years ago, we're talking like 2010, 2009, where there were some ways to record video, but it was quite limited. I mean, my first camera was the Canon T1i, which is like one of Canon's first cameras that could ever film video. You couldn't change the like frame rate. Like there was no customizability. It was basically a stills camera that could technically record, and it was terrible. But like that got me started. And I used to play in a ton of bands. I used to film myself playing. I used to film my friends playing. And eventually, my first customer was someone, a friend of a friend, musician, artist, gave guitar lessons to a CEO of a company, and the CEO of a company wanted a holiday party video. So,
Amazing.
connections are how you get work. You know, like it's people giving good referrals. And I very clearly remember they paid me $300, and I probably got like $5 or less an hour for how much work I put into it. But that was the first time in my life where it's just like I can be paid to be creative,
That must have been
which
so exciting for you.
yeah, it was so exciting. I didn't even care that I was hardly making any money because it was way better than flipping burgers at a fast food restaurant, right? And from that moment, there's that like little dopamine hit of just like, okay, I can make content and get paid for it, as opposed to like, wait, why would I go and perfect my science or engineering skills when like I can still make money
Right?
creating video content. No hate to those people. I love those people. We need those people. But like I'm a very creative person, so I love that kind of opened up for me. And basically, fast forward a bit, that's like the very beginning. Fast forward like 5 or so years, I'm making video content, slowly getting paid slightly more, slightly more. At the University of Washington in my undergraduate, I think I want to say I was making videos for like $3,000 a pop, and that was like huge for me. Even though it was like multiple days of filming, it takes so much time to create one really good deliverable that $3,000 doesn't even come close to cutting it. But slowly, organically building that up, slowly buying better gear, slowly getting better mentorship and everything. People sobering me up and saying like, no, you need to charge more. Like, here's where your value comes from. It doesn't come from the camera you use. It comes from the story you're going to tell and how you can impact their brand. We're selling emotions, really. And I finished my undergrad. I thought, okay, that's like what I was supposed to do, right? Like, check the box, done. After that, like, the clients just flood in, right? They did not flood in. I definitely throughout my entire career have had multiple part-time jobs where I'm filling in the gaps, serving in a restaurant, working in, social media, helping create content. I did have the very, very lucky opportunity to create video content for the university in like a student capacity where I got like 10 to 15 hours a week to go and get paid to do that, which was insane to get paid to like get to learn as well. And so always subsidizing, always trying to find the next group of clients, trying to figure out like what is a sustainable amount of money. Eventually getting to the point where I had bigger clients, and the way I got bigger clients was like, a $500 client would hire me and maybe pay me a little more the next time / refer me to someone, which would lead to a $1,000 client, which would lead to a $3,000, which would lead to a $5,000. And our productions now are, we just created a project that was a $50,000 budget for a single day of filming.
Oh my gosh.
Which is
congratulations.
Yeah,
That's so exciting.
Thank you. It's super exciting. It's a very different world. There's a lot of pre-production. There's actors on set. It's studio spaces where we've got animations coming in. It looks phenomenal. I'm super proud of it. But it was a very slow, organic grind to the top. And honestly, this is something that I think always surprises people because they're like, whoa, Jacob, you run your own company. You can do whatever you want. You have so much freedom. And like, how did you do that? And the reason I started my own company was because no one would hire me, was because I didn't have enough experience for anyone to justify me as a line item in their payroll, which was very rough in the beginning. Because I would have loved to have just gone and worked somewhere and had a mentor and had someone teach me things really, really fast and learn all these different aspects. But with that said, without all the struggle of me trying to figure out on my own. I would have learned like video skills in a formal setting and in like a full-time salaried position, but I would not have learned how to run a business in that sense. And I love running my own business because I get to like decide, nah, I don't like that project. We're not going to do it. Or like, I love this. Let's make sure we can do it for the client. Let's spend extra money. Let's figure out how to make it as awesome as possible. And those are the projects that like we get to make it shine. Those are the ones that win the awards. Those are the ones that, that I'm super proud of. And I sleep well at the end of the day. And now I'm here. And I am asking that question of like, well, you've continued to get bigger budgets, and like, what does that mean? Because I have no intention of Hollywood. I don't want to work on a feature length. I don't want to work on a TV show. It just doesn't interest me at all. I'm also not sure that I want to like direct a $5 million Apple commercial either. Like that's not really the trajectory either. So taking it one day at a time, one client at a time.
one day at a time is good. One of the questions I was wondering as you were describing your journey is, I know you said in the beginning, any project that was paying just felt like really incredible.
Yes.
What point did you feel like you can start to be more discerning with your projects?
I still don't know if I'm picky with projects to this day. The concept of like, if they're in the industry, they probably already know this phrase, but if they're not, it might be a weird concept to wrap their mind around. But feast or famine, is this concept of like, everyone wants to make content in the spring and summer. So it's like feast time. Like everyone has projects. There's tons of work to go around. There's money flowing. Usually it slows down. Historically, it slows down in the winter. Not always, but sometimes. And then, this last winter, I went for like 2 or 3 months without like a substantial project. And it doesn't do it justice to say it terrified me. Like I was losing sleep. I was like, is this finally, after 13 years of doing this, am I finally jumping ship? Like, am I finally going to like sell my soul to the corporate lords to go and make video content for them full time? I forgot what you said and how I got here, but it really is an eye-opening experience to like go through the highs and the lows and just remembering, being grateful for when it is flowing and being smart about money and keeping some in the savings account so that when the slow times happen, as a creative, I'm not completely caught off guard.
Mm-hmm. Along the lines of that, like, can you think of any like experiences or challenges during your 20s that like you feel like really influenced this career path?
Yes, I can think of like 100. I mean, there's so many. Like in the very beginning, like I really struggled with, can I make a living creating video content? In my undergrad, I thought I was going to be an engineer, took advanced variable calculus, failed very quickly, realized that was not going to be for me. I had a dynamic of, I've been told the way to make money is to be a dentist or be an engineer or be a computer scientist, right? But I'm a really creative person and I really want to be able to go and tell stories visually. I eventually came to the conclusion of just, why am I pretending to enjoy going down these pathways when really I'm a very creative person? And actually, a lot of the really creative people in the world get paid a lot of money to be creative, because a story and an emotional connection is why we buy a product to begin with. So I'm just like, okay, you make the great product. I will share why it's important and why it is so great. That was like in my 20s, in my early 20s, that was a very difficult cornerstone of my identity of like, what am I really doing and why am I doing it? And figuring out that I really enjoyed video content and I just wanted to go feet first and fully commit to it was a huge turning point for me. And once I did that, my entire life not my entire life, that's cheesy. My life started to have a domino effect of like, okay, I want to go into video, which means I need to do this, which means I need to do this, which means I need to do this. That was a huge one for me. In a business setting, I had to realize what type of content I wanted to create I started out just saying I'll take anything. Then I very quickly realized that I hated weddings, that I was never going to film anything with like little babies or something. And it's just such a different world. Like, like, oh, family wants this thing and they have $50 versus like, oh, go create a script and make an emotional piece of content for a Fortune 500 company. I quickly realized, yeah, who pays the bills? I mean, those are two big things for me, realizing that I could do this and then realizing, oh, I need to be a business person. I need to understand how this actually works. That has just been like a huge learning roller coaster that like never ends because I just keep going to bigger clients. And every time I get to a bigger client, a new set of questions comes up where I'm like, oh, yeah, what do I do here? And actually, like right now, every step of my journey, I'm always thinking of like, what type of people can I reach out to for mentorship? It's not that they don't exist, but there are very few people that actually run their own companies nowadays. More and more and more, we just go and work for the bigger companies. So I have very few people that like truly relate to my independent situation, which can be difficult sometimes because
Yeah.
my wife hears a lot of stories and my dog listens all the time. So
Oh my gosh. Well, they say that entrepreneurship can be a lonely path at times. So, I mean, I commend you, like, 14 years, right, of like growing your filmmaking business. That's a long time, and you need perseverance, a lot of drive. It's kind of more like having a script or outline to follow versus just a blank sheet of paper, and you have
Right.
to be the one to figure it out. Your journey is also going to be different than every other business owner.
Yeah, and I mean, you articulate it insanely well, and like sometimes that figuring it out is just going with the flow for me, and sometimes it's very concretely sitting down and saying, I'm seeing these opportunities that I need to chase. I need to set time aside every single week to like prove that I can do this, so that then
Right.
someone can hire me.
Right. How would you describe your journey of growing your company specifically? And like, I'm curious about how you managed to expand your clientele over time.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the simplest thing, which I kind of alluded to earlier, like doing work gets you work. That's the easiest way to put it. And everyone at the beginning of their career, of running their own company, being a freelancer, whatever, they hear that, they nod their head, but they don't actually do it. Doing work gets you work. If you want a job making video content at a company, they're not going to hire you if you cannot prove that you can make the content. And making that content can be filming yourself, it can be filming your dog, it can be filming, friends, it can be narrative, it can be salesy, it can be a fake commercial, but you do have to be able to prove to people that you can do it. So like step one for me was always like, I was always creating stuff. I'm a very like efficiency minded individual, and I think sometimes my friends hate me for it, but I would always be the friend that's like, hey, we're hanging out for the weekend, like, do you want to make a little video, whether that's like a silly alien abduction video of us or like a fake commercial for a product somewhere. I at the beginning of my career, I used to enter a lot of like commercial competitions, not thinking that I would win them per se, but because they were prompts to challenge me to make something. And then I showed off those videos and I eventually got hired to make real content for people. Now I'm at the point where in a creative industry, but genuinely any industry, like your communication, your network, the people they're the people that hire you. Like 90% of the time.
Absolutely.
Some people will be like, yeah, Jacob, that's because you need to work on your website and you need to have better SEO. It's like, yes, true. But also, I've had people reach out from my website and say like, love your stuff. Let's get on a call and talk through things. And every time I drop a price, they're terrified, they're just like, wow, that is way too much for us to be able to take on. Because there's a huge amount of like education that happens there. I'm getting on kind of a side tangent here, but my network, when I post something to LinkedIn and say, I'm working on blank, it's a really cool project, so fun to get to work with this client, they see the value, they see the professionalism, and they know that I value myself and that I charge a lot of money. So when they refer someone to me, they set them up with that expectation. They give me relevant referrals versus when it's cold call people on the internet. They're almost always, I'm giving them a price and they're like spitting out their tea and then, like closing their laptop. It isn't
Right.
always the case, but it's usually that. And when you look through our client roster, I can tell you how I know each individual person, and it's almost, I think like 99% of our business, it's either like I took a class from them, I taught them in a class, I, met them through a social gathering, their family, their friends, and almost no one that's a complete cold call that has no concept of who I am. So, at the very beginning, work gets you work, doing work gets you work, and towards
Yep.
the end now, not the end, but like towards modern career, nowhere near retiring. I'm at the point where people hire me because they know of me, and that's why I post so much to social media. That's why I post so much educational content on YouTube. That's actually part of why I teach in the graduate program. For being super honest, I get to post about it on social media, and then people hire me as a result of it. Some of these students do go on to become marketing managers, and then we'll hire our team back. It's you do have to have a network. You can't just create in solitude and then just like hope that someone hires you, because it's not how it works, unfortunately. I wish it did.
Yeah, for sure. I love hearing your insight about this. And the other thing I was curious about is regarding pricing. And you touched on this a little bit earlier about, the difference between the race to the bottom, like more like budget focus versus like, maybe like quality or some other components that can kind of help you set yourself apart. And I know a lot of creators, filmmakers, they do struggle with how to price and how to package their services. Obviously, no one wants to be in a situation where they feel like they're pricing themselves too low or too high, and it's like really hard to figure out that balance sometimes. What's your approach to crafting packages for your clients?
Yeah, I could talk about this for days because I've been burnt on it so many times, and I've also had some huge successes with it too. So like this is the thing that lights up the room whenever you're in a group of freelancers and they're like, wait, you got what to do what? And like, how do you manage this? And like, what's your secret code? Up, down, BB. Like figuring out like, how does life work? Right. And the problem is every single client's going to be different. So there's no such one thing that's going to work for everyone. Because my first piece of advice is don't do hourly work. And I mean that from multiple frames of mind. One, a lot of my clients are, middle-sized companies that don't do a ton of video. They don't know how many hours goes into a video. So when I come to them, if I come to them and I say, hey, our hourly rate is $195 an hour, that's what it is, then they think, okay, well, they'll have 3 people on set filming. That's 8 hours times 3. And there's like 2 hours before and like 5 hours after. That's not that much money. Okay, we can totally afford this. And I'm sitting there like, whoa, we need like 50 hours before, depending on how complicated of a project this is. Afterwards, we're going to have to bring in an animator. There's audio sweetening. Like, we're not talking 5 hours for editing. We're talking about like 50 hours for editing. And there's just every single project's different. If I am struggling to quantify specifically how many hours they're going to be, there's no way that they are going to be able to accurately come up with what that estimate is. So hourly is not helpful if they don't know what they're hiring you for and they don't understand what they're hiring you for. Even if you give them an estimate, they're still really floating in the dark. So that's not great. On the other side of things, with hourly, if someone is coming to you with a project and they actually do kind of know video, and you just tell them an hourly rate, they may just view it from a completely different, like, nitpicky perspective of like, well, why do you spend time doing this? Because that spent money. It's like, because that made the project better. Like, isn't that what we're here to do? Did you need to like approve every single like step of that process? So it's just overly not great. I really only do hourly work with long-standing partners, and it's usually like tacked on to the end of a contract. Like, we did this contract, we went over, though there's a conversation before we went over, and then it expands. But avoid hourly. Actually building out packages, so difficult. What are their expectations, and what do they need, and what's their like baseline? I just genuinely have a really transparent conversation, and I tell them, imagine, and if anyone's listening right now and they want to know how to like masterfully navigate the situation, you need to memorize this. It is, okay, you want a house built. Great. Our team builds houses. This is obviously role playing, and I share this with the client because it really helps them understand the perspective. You want a house built. Our team helps build you your house, your dream house. We can't really be helpful to you if we don't fully understand the parameters of like, what is your budget? Because building a single family home that has 2 bedrooms, 1 single car garage, is a place to live, is incredibly different from a 20 bedroom underground swimming pool with private basketball, like all the things and amenities. Those are like vastly different ballparks and vastly different price points. And giving that example usually helps people understand, okay, Jacob actually wants to use all of my budget in the sense that he wants to make me the best thing possible for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful to hear. I wanted to learn a little bit more about your teaching career. Let's move on to leadership in filmmaking and education. So specifically, when I first got to know you, I saw, how unique your experience has been and how you were able to translate this from working in an industry to educating future generations of storytellers, right? And you just celebrated 3 years teaching at UW, and that is so incredible. I'm curious about how you like formulated this curriculum for the course. Like, what does all the work look like going into something like this?
Yeah, I mean, so I teach 2 courses currently, though I'm slated to start teaching a 3rd one next year. The 2 courses, the first one is Foundations of Video Storytelling, which is exactly what you would think it would be. I assume that people know nothing about cameras, and they come in and we have to go over, what is a script? What is a story? What is a beginning, middle, and end of a story? What do they need to have? How do you use a camera? How do you edit? And then we do a lot of refining through the class. There's 3 different assignments. When they turn it in the first time, they get feedback, then they go and make it better for their actual grade, because that's how video actually works. We don't create things in a silo and then just hit publish for our client. No, the client needs to give feedback and go through that real world process. I'm teaching the class actively right now, and it's the 5th time that I've taught the class, I believe. So the first time I taught the class, oof. I'm sorry to everyone that was like a first time student. I learned so much through that experience. And every single time I teach the class, I think I get 5 or 10% better at teaching it. On the flip side, the second class I teach, which is an advanced practicum class, it's working with real world clients. Students are split up into groups, and they have a real client. There's no money being exchanged, but there's a real client that wants a real piece of content, and they have to the whole point is, how do you navigate your self in a professional capacity?
Yes.
And we all speak together as a group, so everyone gets to learn from each other to a certain extent. But I just try to keep it real. What do people need to know in order to succeed?
It's so great that you're able to adapt as you go, and the students that sign up for your class and what sort of careers they're looking forward to, and making that applicable for what they're about to do. I think that's really important. What are some specific topics you would touch on in your foundations course to tailor it and make it useful for your students? Because I know there's a lot of students that go on to do things that are not as video centric, right? Especially if they're working in corporate. So how do you feel like you've tailored your course to make it useful for their experience?
Yeah, so I love the question. I think that the way I have approached this class is also incredibly helpful for just how do we approach content for everything. For the foundational course, I think the most recent incoming cohort is around 130 students, and probably like maybe 5 of them, maybe, will actually go on to consistently use video professionally in their careers. And what I mean by that is, like they're actually filming something, they're actually editing something, they're actually like engaging with content. And that's like, that might be generous. Like out of my cohort of like 70 people, I was one of like 3. And I might actually be one of like 2 that professionally do it still. It's not a program that's meant for film, right? It's not that. So that's all preface for. I build the class in a way that people can come in and they can learn all these skills. If they really want to go into video, it's a great foundational setting. But if they are going to become UX UI people, if they're going to be content designers, if they're going to go and become marketing managers, directors, working at nonprofits, working at smaller companies, they do need to have a reasonable understanding of what video is and how to create it, so that not necessarily they create the content, but that they can fluently speak with vendors, so that they can, outline, these are the ideas that I want to do, and this is how I want them executed. I don't have the technical expertise to do this. You do, but I have an understanding of what we need. There's tons of ways that I try to bake that stuff into the class. And there's a lot of content in the class where it's like marketing sales funnel, building personas that we're trying to market to. It's not just strictly how do we use cameras.
How much time do you have to dedicate to the class?
In the scheme of things, it's probably like 1 full day a week that gets dedicated to doing class content. But that full day is spread out 2 hours here, 1 hour here, 30 minutes here, all that kind of stuff. So it does take a substantial amount of my time, but I do get paid money to do it. And yeah, the clout of clients going onto the website and being like, oh, Jacob teaches at a master's level at the University of Washington. Got it. We can at least trust him to a certain extent, because that's a conversation starter right there.
When you look back at the last 10 years of your life, what have you been like the most proud of, and like what are some things that you would have done differently?
I'm really proud that I stuck with it. There were multiple times where I strongly considered just like giving up and going down a different pathway, whether that was like going and working for a company full time for video production, or just being like, I don't know if video production is going to pay the bills. It definitely pays my bills. I live a very comfortable life. My dog, my wife, and I love our beach time. Like
so good to hear that.
Great. But there were multiple times where it was like really difficult to see that on the horizon. And it's now paid off. But if I could time travel and let me know, like hang with it, like eat ramen for a few more weeks, like it's gonna be fine. It'll all be good. I also, just as a side note, I now eat really nice ramen. So like saying like eat ramen, like for like keeping it on the cheap, it's like actually ramen can be really expensive.
We've upgraded.
Different. It's not top ramen, I'm glad that I stuck with it. I have come to this realization. I mean, like I've known this for years, but I really see it now, and it kind of keeps me up at night sometimes, but like I'm insanely privileged. I do recognize that if I didn't have like the support behind me, my family, if I didn't know that if my business failing meant that I would be on the streets versus like on my parents' couch, like I would have approached life insanely differently. I never would have started my own company. I never would have pushed through the hard times. Like I would have gotten a job. I would have been safe. I would have tried to get those core things taken care of. I say that from a place of like, I see people trying to get into the industry nowadays, and I tell them that very transparently. Like, you are not going to make a ton of money in your first year or your second year. Like, you would have to hit the jackpot to be able to do that. It's going to take a long time to ramp up. You have to know, does your significant other have you covered if it's a horrible month, or can your family help you out? Or, do you have enough in the bank account to kind of roll into those experiences? I worked multiple jobs while I was creating content, and knowing, but just simply knowing that I was covered if I stumbled and fell made a huge difference, and it enabled me to become, the business owner that I am today. But I love sharing that perspective, because that's a really difficult one to quantify. It's a really difficult one to really say and really share. And I think a lot of people don't share it because, if you're at the top, you pulled yourself up by your own bootstraps. Yeah, I went through tough months, but I had access to resources if that failed. And I do want people to not be screwed. I don't want them to just be like, oh, Jacob started a company, he's fine, and now he's doing great, and monetarily he's making a great salary. It's like, yes, and it was incredibly brutal to get there, and it's so, like, make sure you have a support network, make sure you have a community to keep you in check, make sure that you're reaching out to people, and you've got people that are kind of going through it with you, and they can help you, emotionally, financially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
Jacob, I'm happy that you shared that perspective.
The big advice is make work so that you can get work. It's okay if you fail in that process. Don't let failure scare you. Let it show you how to grow, because that's how we become better, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you create is not going to be perfect. That doesn't mean you can't share it. That means that you should share it so you can get opinions on how to make it better. You get work from your network, from your community. And if you're excited about their work, they're excited about your work. It's just naturally going to start building that snowball effect.
I appreciate you sharing all of that. Thank you, Jacob. Where can our listeners connect with you if they want to follow your content?
Yeah, I am very active on Instagram, JKC Video. We also consistently post content to YouTube, also JKC Video. And if you're a professional connection and you want to just chit chat, also LinkedIn. I'm on there as well. I do genuinely love meeting other people that are fired up. And if you're this far in the podcast, you're probably fired up. So, like, let's be real. Like, send over the question on Instagram and let's connect.
And thank you so much for being my guest on this podcast. You've been a great guest. I loved hearing all of your insights and just your transparency through everything.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to stay tuned for the next one. And if you have thoughts or questions to share, please connect with us on our Instagram handle, which is on the cusp of 30 podcast.